there, thank you so much for joining us. It is a lovely Monday morning right here on Camnet TV. Thank you so much to everyone that is tuned in to Camnet TV Breakfast, where we are urging you to rise and thrive with us this particular morning as you look forward the whole week. My name is Joe Smart, and of course, I'm with my colleague, Nelson Zulu. Nelson?
Good morning, Joe, and it's good to be back.
It's good to be back on a Monday, especially that time in blue, and Chelsea yesterday won.
Well, I didn't expect that, but please, let's not keep our hopes as if we're going to lift the title.
I feel we need security. We are not safe as Chelsea fans. From you, the Liverpool fans, as well as the Manchester United fans.
No. From my end as a Red, what we can tell you is you're very much safe.
Okay.
Because you're very far from reaching at where we are.
No, assure us of our safety, sir.
Very much safe. I can assure you. I can assure you of safety. And congratulations to you too. Also, I did see that your teams were battling it out over the weekend in the Absa Cup.
In the Absa Cup, yes.
Musa FC.
Cabo Warriors against Musa. Cabo Warriors emerged as a better side. Obviously, Coach Numamba did his homework, and we saw that really they emerged winners, winning 2-1 against Musa FC. But again, Musa is closer to my heart. It is a good team that has done tremendous work under the mentorship of Mr. Kavika, a very good man, very great man, and also Council Keith Mwemba, a very good man as well. Musa has done well, seeing that it also played some time back continental football, and for Musa and Cabo Warriors to have met and obviously being eliminated from the ABSA finals, semi-finals rather, it just shows how hard the team has been working. But congratulations to the boys in blue, like they say, Injanji, the Royal Women, Cabo Warriors. They managed to go and book their place in the final of the Absa Cup. Congratulations to them. And obviously, Cabo Central is jubilating to their victory. We say all the best. But then again, Nchanga Rangers and Red Arrows. Now, that game also, that match also ended 2-1, 2-1. And the Airmen, Red Arrows, emerged as the best men on that particular day. And I must say, Red Arrows is a team to look out for, Nelson. You know that they're on top of the league.
Oh, yes.
They are on top of the league, and they've done tremendously well this season. So they're meeting Cabo Warriors in the finals. The game will be played on Sunday, right? Right here in Lusaka. I foresee a very tough match. Like the Airmen against the Royal Men. It's going to be a very tough match, but anyway, these are Zambian teams, and obviously we love our players. At the end of the day, it's a game, and we can only wish the best team to win on that particular day. The boys have put in all the work that they could have put in, and we can only say, may the best men win.
May the best men win. Indeed, you too can be part of this broadcast by simply telling us how your weekend was. How did you get to enjoy the weekend? And talking about the weekend, this is also a time that we get to delve into the health corner, where we look at the health aspect of it, in as much as we get to celebrate over the weekend and have all those jubilations in form of different activities. We also need to ensure that our health is in check, for health is life. Let's get to look at the health corner, and we'll be back on the other side.
Hi, good morning and welcome to the Health Corner here on the Breakfast Show. I am Dr. Nakubiana Mfaya. So this week we want to talk about something that is affecting many people, and so many people are having this condition mostly because they are at risk of having this condition. So we want to talk about stroke. We'll talk about what is a stroke or what is stroke, and also we'll talk about some of the risk factors and causes of a stroke. How does it come about? How does one get stroke? And also we'll discuss how it's diagnosed and how it can be treated in the hospital. And we'll also talk about what you can do to prevent yourself from getting a stroke. So today we'll discuss what is a stroke. A stroke usually occurs in the brain, and it's caused by having brain cells that are damaged due to lack of oxygen or lack of blood flow to that part of the brain. So a stroke is brain damage that occurs due to lack of blood flow to that part of the brain or due to a blockage in the brain. So there are different types of stroke that one person or a person can have, and depending on the type of stroke, the treatment also varies for the different types of stroke. So we have three main types of stroke. The first one is what we call ischemic stroke. So ischemic stroke usually occurs when there's a blockage in a vessel or a blood vessel in the brain. So this blockage can be due to a blood clot that has come from somewhere else in the body. It can also be due to high cholesterol. So if there's a buildup of cholesterol in the body, it can form clots in certain blood vessels. So the other thing that can cause ischemic stroke is buildup of certain compounds that can cause blockages, especially calcium compounds that can cause blockages in some vessels and cause blockages, and it can lead to having a stroke. So the second type of stroke that is there is known as hemorrhagic stroke. A hemorrhagic stroke usually occurs when there's a bleed in the brain. So a blood vessel has ruptured in the brain. If there's a blood vessel that has ruptured in the brain, then it can cause blood to leak into the brain tissues, and that can cause a stroke. So the other type of stroke, the third type of stroke is a mini stroke. We call it a mini stroke because it doesn't last for a very long time. Usually it lasts for about an hour. If it extends, then it resolves within 24 hours. So this is known as a transient ischemic attack, or a TIA. So when you have a TIA, you present with symptoms that are more of a stroke. You have a mini stroke basically. So there's a blockage, which may be a partial blockage in the brain, but the blood flow is still there. So the symptoms of having a stroke might be there, but they might not be very, very significant. So, and they might not last for too long. So some might even last for about 30 minutes to an hour. And if it extends, it might last for 24 hours, but it usually resolves by the time it's 24 hours. So those are the three main types of stroke that are there. And so with these types of stroke, people can present differently. And tomorrow we'll discuss some of the causes of stroke, what really happens, like what are some of the risk factors for people that have stroke that can cause them to have stroke. So today we were learning what is a stroke, and we say that stroke occurs when there's brain injury that is caused by a blockage or a bleed in the brain that causes that part of the brain to have less oxygen and less blood supply. And so you end up having symptoms of somebody that has a stroke that we'll talk about on a different day. So make sure that you watch the breakfast show here on Camnet TV, and we'll see you next time.
Okay, thank you so much for still joining us. Now, that was our resident doctor there, giving us an update or enlightening us on what a stroke is. Now, quickly, we go into our money markets and see how the kwacha is faring against major convertible foreign currencies. There we have it, updated today, the 6th of May, in the year 2024 at exactly 07:28. We begin with our foreign exchange rates. Now, the United States dollar is buying at 26 kwacha 80 ngwe and selling at 27 kwacha 32 ngwe. The euro is buying at 28 kwacha 87 ngwe and selling at 29 kwacha 44 ngwe. The Great British Pound is buying at 33 kwacha 68 ngwe and selling at 34 kwacha 35 ngwe. The South African rand is buying at 1 kwacha 45 ngwe and selling at 1 kwacha 48 ngwe. Obviously, the main focus will be on the kwacha against the United States dollar. Now, like we earlier indicated, as you can see on your screen, that the United States dollar is buying at 26 kwacha 18 ngwe and selling at 27 kwacha 32 ngwe. Those were your exchange rates for this particular morning, and they do differ from bureau to bureau and from bank to bank. As you go about conducting your business today, be reminded that those are the exchange rates for this particular morning. Now, Nelson, a lot happened over the weekend. We saw the Energy Regulation Board Director General being sent on forced leave, according to media reports, and also the Energy Regulation Board Chairperson Dr. Reynolds Woa, according to media reports are suggesting that he has been fired. However, let me be quick to mention that we haven't received any formal communication from government, including the Ministry of Information and Media. So these are media reports that we are yet to confirm. But since it's already out there in public domain, would like to update you, the viewers. Nelson?
Yeah, definitely. Talking about those unconfirmed reports, unconfirmed as they are, but we've seen that media reports have continued to emerge. And the latest one this morning, if you've taken time to look at one of the newspapers, is the alleged suspended board chairperson in Engineer Reynolds Boa, indicating that actually he was celebrating as of yesterday with his friends, because look, the dismissal or the firing did not come like a notice of a funeral, that someone had died or what. So I think that also sends a picture. Now, to be sincere, I think if it is true, then basically it makes a sad reading.
Why, Nelson?
Because look, I did take time to look at the curriculum vitae for Engineer Boa, or Boa, as others would call it. He's a man of caliber, so is Mr. Johan Mutabe. I think these were people that have been bold enough to make decisions that are really important for the country's growth. And if anything, rumor has it that they were allegedly dismissed over the hiking in the tariffs. Okay, but one thing that we need to put on record here is that how did we arrive at an increase in electricity tariffs? Remember, there was a research that was conducted by a foreign company to look at or assess at how the country's electricity tariffs were, if they were fair or not fair. That was 2021 somewhere, and recommendations were made, of which that report did indicate that the tariffs were not really fair. So there was need to increase or adjust a bit to ensure that the energy sector in Zambia is also put on the competitive map.
That was in 2021.
That was in 2021. And last year, we saw the same tariffs or same recommendations that were put forward being approved in principle. Okay? Being approved in principle. And one thing we should also put in mind is the fact that you cannot approve tariffs adjustment minus the approval of government to the Ministry of Energy.
Nelson, are we seeing a situation where our doctor engineer has been sacrificed? He's now a sacrificial lamb. But I'm asking this because tariff adjustments are done after quite a robust process.
Exactly.
Nelson. Even public hearings can be held just on tariff adjustments.
Exactly.
So my question is, how can a director general unilaterally come up with tariffs and then get the board chairman to sign off on the announcements of the adjustments? Now, besides, when these tariffs announced last year, we're asking, we want answers.
They were announced last year and they were approved last year, if you remember. So, meaning that this year, which is 2024, it's a year for implementation. Now, for me, I think the pressure was announcing the implementation of the tariffs at the time when fuel prices were hiked.
So why are you hating on the player? Why don't you hate the game?
I think that was, for me personally, I would say that's my opinion. I think the timing was not just...
Don't kill the messenger.
The timing was not really okay because...
So the announcement was bad.
Exactly, because the tariffs were already approved last year.
Okay.
So, meaning that this year...
It's implementation.
It's implementation.
Okay.
So the implementation part came at a time when fuel prices also had been hiked. Because, Joe, if we were to look at those tariffs, really, we're talking about 15 ngwe as the maximum increase for persons or customers or majority of customers who are using 100 to 500 units.
Okay.
So, a 15 ngwe in each unit, that has just been increased. So, to some extent, this is not even really a pitch because it's not even amounting to a 15 ngwe.
You know a problem I have? You know the challenge, let's not even call it a problem, it's a challenge. Here's the thing, there's lack of effective communication, I think, in all sectors.
Absolutely.
If, for instance, the Energy Regulation Board can come out and explain matters like we're explaining them right now, it will be very easy for an ordinary Zambian out there to understand. If ZESCO, for instance, the power utility company that we have as a country, can be able to come out and explain what is really happening as opposed to flip-flopping. Why am I saying they're flip-flopping? They told us, they released a statement.
Yes.
They're importing power from Tanzania. That's what the statement read. As of yesterday, a statement was issued. No, we are readjusting our schedule. How? When you are failing to follow your same schedule that you've been releasing, I'll tell you, go to Charleston. Those in Charleston, they'll bear me witness. 5 days, power hasn't been cut. That's an anomaly. No, in ZESCO. That's an anomaly. Go to North Mid. Last week, for 3 days, power wasn't cut. It's supposed to be like that. However, we're in a crisis, load shedding crisis, and electricity has to be rationed. You know what I mean? But go to other areas, other parts of Lusaka. I'm talking about Lusaka because I'm in Lusaka. You find that power is cut from 8 to 21. How do you explain that? How is that barberman going to work? How is that salon lady going to work? How are those people that have got deep freezers in their shops going to work? Butcheries, how are they going to operate? You see, so all these things need to be put into consideration. Surely you can't come in a WhatsApp group and say my voice is bad. I can't do a video. I can't speak. Here is a statement. You should know what to do with it. Honestly, Nelson, when a child is born, mothers are aged to go for antenatal. That's pre and post. Okay, they are told to go for antenatal. Then this child's growth will be monitored. That's the reason why they're given those cards. Okay, so they'll be monitoring the child's growth using that very card. Now, my question is, from the time Zambia got independence, who's been monitoring Zambia's growth? Who's been monitoring Zambia's growth? We are now here under a new administration. Who is monitoring this country's growth? we still have the same challenges that we were having previously, of having power cuts, of being load shedded, of people losing lives because of load shedding. Imagine that person that is dependent on power, who's on oxygen. What happens when power cuts? Yes, there will be arguments of saying no, gensets will kick in, but before that genset kicks in, what happens to that person? You lose a life. So let us not pretend as if this is not affecting us. It is affecting us, all of us, and we should move these political lenses we like wearing every time when national matters arise and be serious with what we are doing. And we are still asking the question, Nelson. We had, you remember, like you earlier stated, we had electricity cost service study undertaken by an independent,
yes,
underline the word independent,
yes,
independent consultant hired from where? Europe.
Exactly.
And funded by the AFBD. Okay? AFDB. The consultant started around 2018, 2019. Mark those years.
Yes,
2018, 2019, and concluded the assignment early 2021. This report confirmed our fears that the tariff size was discouraging investors to invest in the Zambian electricity supply, and recommended a gradual but predictable pattern of tariff improvement over a 5-year period.
Definitely. And talking about that over 5-year period, it is the one now that was approved as of last year in principle. And now it was the implementation that was announced at the time when the fuel hike also was announced.
Okay.
So if you look at those timings now, that's what caused more of tension within the consumers themselves. Because, Joe, if I were to look at some of the increments or the percentage that have been put at, for instance, if you're buying 100 units, you're using 100 units as a consumer, you find that it is only about 0.9 ngwe that has been put, which is 9 ngwe, equivalent to 9 ngwe that has been put.
So why are we seeing the board chair being thrown under the bus? That's the answer that we need, Nelson. However, the increase in ZESCO tariffs is not a wild increase, like you are putting.
It's not.
It's not. In 2022 or 2022, the government approved what is called a multi-year tariff order.
Yes.
MYTO, which spelled out how the tariffs will be increasing over the years to get to the cost reflective positions. Now, the Energy Regulation Board, ERB, went around the country collecting people's views and later on approved the MYTO. Now, government through the ministry also approved the same. This MYTO thing is a common practice around the world designed to bring tariff predictability over time. Once approved, tariff adjustment is then triggered by the utility meeting certain benchmarks. How can the board in 2024 now say there was no consultations?
I think that is why I have a problem. That's why my main concern.
Someone's not being sincere.
My main concern, really, Joe, is that the implementation of the tariffs lacked timing, good timing.
Okay.
Because it is a time when fuel prices have been increased. It is a time when people are being load shedded for more than 8 hours.
So whom would you blame? Whom are we going to blame?
For me, I would,
because it has happened. So whom are we going to blame?
For me, I would really put much of the need to be proactive on the Ministry of Energy, because they're the ones that oversee all these operations. In all honesty, Joe, it is very important that even little things such as this, such as the increment in tariffs, shouldn't cause problems within society, shouldn't cause problems among consumers to understand what really has been put across. Because 9 ngwe, 15 ngwe, it's not money that one can be arguing about. they're arguing about because there's lack of information that has been put out there.
And when there's lack of information, Nelson, that opens up a Pandora box to speculations.
Exactly.
Now, you do remember, we don't want to be political on this issue, but the PF threw out what is known as the multi-year tariff order. They put it aside. Okay? So when the UPND came, they approved it. A research was done. Then they say, okay, fine, this research that was conducted by an independent consultant, we'll put it aside. When the UPND came, they opened that can of worms. Okay? And approved it. Now, if you look at Engineer Mukabe, he's one of the best director generals.
Exactly.
Let's face it.
That's what I was saying.
Let's face it.
Let's look at the CV of these two individuals.
Let's face it. And you know,
because Engineer Wa, for instance, has been at it for over 2 decades.
yeah, these are experienced individuals. And these are experienced individuals. I'll leave it there. We have the challenges the industry is going through are historic.
Exactly.
Okay? Energy sometimes tend to be very political, if you ask me. Not so long ago, was it last week? The power utility company told us. In fact, wait. If you go on the UPND Facebook pages, you will find one of the posts they are saying President Hakainde Hichilema, when he went to Tanzania for that country's commemoration and celebrations, whatever. One of the reasons why he went there, according to that caption, they wrote that he was going to sign a deal for us as a country to start importing power from Tanzania, because Tanzania had switched off 3 of its power generation sources, right? So that deal was going to be signed so that we begin to import power. The power utility company issued a statement. We have it.
Oh yes.
Indicating that we will now begin to import from Tanzania. Yesterday, they issued another statement saying that we've now we're adjusting this week's schedule. Adjusting what? Really? Can we be serious? What are you adjusting? Because look, first of all, the power utility company is failing to follow their own schedule. They are informing us that they've adjusted and these are the hours and this is how we are going to be load shedded. However, they are not following their own schedule. I beg say, they had an electrical fault. They had no power. They informed the power utility company. They've been calling and calling and calling. No efforts. If it's going to be rectified, maybe it's yesterday or maybe after 6 hours today. I don't know.
Yeah,
but it hasn't yet been corrected.
I think, Joe.
So what is really happening? I've given you an example, Nelson. When a child is born, we manage their growth. We monitor their growth. We inspect how this child is doing. Even when they start going to school, we monitor their performance at school. Okay? Until they reach tertiary level, they start working, we monitor their growth. Who's been monitoring the growth of this country since independence?
That's a definitely good question also that you, our viewers, can be able to respond to and give us your perspectives by simply calling in the numbers on your screen, as well as leaving us with a Facebook comment, just like Mr. Edwin Zulu has done so, who indicates that tariffs too high with load shedding help people survive, otherwise it is very difficult to survive. We thank you for that comment, Mr. Zulu, and wherever you're watching us from, it's a big shout out to you. You too can do the same, and we'll be glad to hear from you in terms of what you think should be the right order when it comes to doing these things. For instance, the issue in electricity tariffs, how do you understand them? There's also the fuel hike that has been put across for the month of May. How do you understand it? How are you coping up? And those are some of the trending stories that you too can be part and parcel by ensuring that your voice is heard. Remember, development is a two-way tire that requires both the citizens and those in the wheels of power. And just talking about those in the wheels of power, let's get to look at a story as we get to zoom in this morning. that...
Nelson, before you go to a use of power, as we conclude on this one, we're still on energy, sir.
Yes.
As we conclude, now I want to bring it to the attention of the viewers out there that really, when you are doing these tariffs adjustments and whatever, it's really consultative. It's really consultative. Now, do you remember that in 2012, there was a meeting that was convened in Livingstone by the Energy Regulation Board. Yeah, and this was a public hearing on ZESCO on tariff hikes. Okay, so this was a public hearing that was done in Livingstone in 2012. How many years ago? Now, the venue of this particular event was packed. And at that particular time, there was a parliamentary by-election at the same time in Livingstone. You remember I said issues that have to do with electricity sometimes are political. Now, when people went there for that particular public hearing, reports emerged that these particular individuals were trying to support the opposition by mounting an electric hike public hearing at the same time of an explosive by-election. How do you come here to discuss about tariff hikes when there's a by-election here? So you are supporting the opposition. You get my point. That was in 2012. Okay, so individuals were accused. So I just wanted us to understand why sometimes the issues that have to do with tariff hikes are considered to be political. Yeah?
Yeah.
So there you have it.
Definitely. That's one of those things that have been actually making headlines, especially what society is concerned about. And these are issues that are there in public domain. And you too need to be a very critical consumer of information by simply ensuring that you rely on credible sources of information, as well as also do your own research for a better understanding. And just talking about issues relating to information, let's get to look at a story where the Disability Rights Watch has charged that the current political landscape in Zambia is not hospitable for persons living with disabilities. Disability Rights Watch Executive Director Wamundila Waliua says that the continued discrimination for persons with disability, especially when aspiring for public office, is worrying. He urges political parties to create more inclusive environment for persons with disabilities to occupy influential positions in politics. And aside from politics, we also get to look at a story where a group of 32 farmers in Chibombo District, Central Province, have applauded the importance of organic farming training that the Development Aid from People to People DAP has provided. Lead farmer Moses Kapande explains that the main goal of the training is to encourage small farmers to adopt farming practices that are both diverse and capable of withstanding the impacts of climate change. We get to look at these two stories. We'll be back on the other side, hoping to hear from you in terms of what your perspective is regards these stories. Keep it on Camnet. Remember, Camnet TV is not just another channel, and we set the tone for the new week.
Politics play a pivotal role in shaping a nation's development agenda as it determines policies, allocates resources, and establishes priorities. A politically inclusive system ensures that the voices and needs of all citizens, including persons with disabilities, are represented and addressed. By actively engaging in diverse perspectives, political processes can better identify and respond to the challenges facing society, leading to more comprehensive and equitable outcomes. However, the exclusion of persons with disabilities from political participation poses significant barriers to national progress. Because of this, the Disability Rights Watch has described the current political landscape in Zambia as unaccommodating, citing the discrimination and stigma persons with disabilities are subjected to when seeking public office, especially women.
Disability Rights Watch observes that there is still a lot of discrimination going on in as far as the participation of persons with disabilities in public and political life. We say there's still a lot of discrimination on many grounds which we observe under our political and public life participation work which we've been doing in the past 5 to 6 years. We see that political parties themselves are not yet ready to adopt or nominate persons with disabilities on various positions, either within their political party systems and structures or nomination for political positions. Like
Mr. Waliwa has since urged political parties in the country to create an accommodating environment within the parties to allow persons with disabilities to participate in politics.
Seeing the president taking steps in appointing different persons with disabilities to different commissions, that is not adequate. We would like to see persons with disabilities being promoted within the structures of the government. We've got a lot of persons with disabilities who've got qualifications academically and professionally, but we don't see them being promoted to positions of directors within the ministries and the permanent secretaries within the ministries, and at the end we want to see a few ministers and members of parliament within the system. On the other hand, as Disability Rights Watch, we want to urge all persons with disabilities, including women with disabilities, to be assertive so that their skills, their power, their talent is brought afore and in the open.
Chanda Mwango for Camnet News in Lusaka.
Young Farmers Club is a project under the Development Aid from People to People DAP. The project is located in Camnet town of Chibombo district and has a total of 518 farmers aged between 18 and 30. Mr. Siwale, the project manager, says Young Farmers Club was started to erase the idea that young people must always move to the city to look for greener pastures. He says the club is trying to inculcate to the local community that through agriculture one can earn a living.
Farmers aged from 18 to 28 that are doing farming, and the objective of this project is to uplift to the standard of livelihood of the Young Farmers Club. We have in total about 518 farmers that we are working with. 230 they are females, 288 are males. In this program we are doing general agriculture, entrepreneurship, and also just to see how do they get sustained so that they stay where they are.
And lead farmer Moses Kapande at the Kembe Gardens says the initiative by DAP to train young people has changed the livelihood of many in the area.
Poyambo titandiza ba DAP i project banamba face na not trainer banabwera face as a training banaona kairi ma members kuno ma youths benzo peze kache mu load bena nguba enda check moba bija voenda cheva enda cheva sobera bija vivena kumutu so pamene banaanganira ba DAP bebere I think we project ya ma gardens tikaipeleka ku Kembe kuja I think inga balance never mene banabwerera tinakumana ku National Assembly office kuja batita na the youths bambo ti trainer after training kunapita che 1 month batireterako ma seeds yosiana lepu cabbage onion Chinese batiretera vonse na chani vonse banatiretera so wamene banatiretera banachita che boost poyambira.
Among the 518 farmers, 230 are female, and some of the women found on site explain how the Young Farmers Club has impacted their lives.
Tanza kwa wana wa skulu, brava kuja kwa nyumba, na vinangu vevi mafunika. Soto nga ziko mpotitani zilako. Kugula bakuja, kaisi tinalime this year, minisi inachita chai. Sinagwire bwino. So, if tikalima hivi, then tikakuliza, bakula bakuja, tikalima beetroot. Ikakura paja tapeleka kusoweto. Imati pasako kapeza koro masaka ya bili, mako na 2000. Kabwela paja tapeleka kwa wana kusikuru,
And DAP Managing Director Elise Sorensen says the organization is looking for more funding to upscale the Young Farmers Project to other areas.
We like to expand, so we are really also lobbying and finding a different type of funding, because the funding we have now is not sufficient to scale up. Okay. But we really are looking for additional funding. Okay. Because we think it's very good, and it's very nice to see these young people, how much they are doing.
With the current high cost of living, it is imperative that people begin to grow their own fruits and vegetables. Cherish Sibote for Camnet News, Lusaka.
Thank you so much for still deciding to keep it on Camnet, and we continue the transmission. We're looking at some of the two stories where we're seeing that DAP is coming to the aid of some farmers in Chibombo district by ensuring that they provide some sort of agricultural practices that are really up to date with the climatic condition that we have. And looking at some feed from our Facebook platform, is that
we do have Mr. Edwin Zulu.
Mr. Edwin Zulu is back again with some comments, where the first one reads, "Load shedding is out of bounds. ZESCO is quick to switch off power but delay in restoring power.
True.
The schedule is not followed by the ZESCO board, management and staff. Mediocrity, to say the least." It goes on again, "We blame government through the Energy Regulation Board. There's no consistency and a heart to save people."
Now, this is a senior citizen. Seasoned senior citizen. That is telling you to say there is no consistency and a heart to save the people. How do you load shed your fellow Zambians, your brothers and sisters, from 8 to 21 and go and sleep and have a peaceful night and come in the group and say, "My voice is not okay, I can't even do a video, here is a statement, we've adjusted what?" We are still having, look, you are saying you're going to load shed us for 8 hours. Last time you split it into 4-4, which you couldn't follow. You came back, you started load shedding us. You said you're going to load shed us for 8 hours. But the reality on the ground is that you are load shedding us for 13 hours straight, 12 hours straight, 10 hours straight. Somebody is not being sincere, and the levels of dishonesty in this country are so alarming that some people have turned lying into a career, which is very unfortunate.
Very unfortunate.
We need to learn to tell the truth. We claim to be a Christian nation, Nelson. Like Mr. Edwin Zulu is saying, I totally agree with him. There's no heart to save the people. You can't. What time is that person going to work, Nelson? Talk about these perishables are rotting.
Absolutely.
In butcheries. People are losing out money.
Absolutely, Joe. And for me, basically, I was to talk about the need for us to be proactive when we look at these issues.
Before we become proactive, let's be sincere.
Yes.
Let's be honest in our dealings. Let's be very honest.
Because
as Zambians.
Remember, there was a period when the nation was meant to believe that we're not going to be load shedded because things had been restored. And then from what we've seen so far, due to the drought situation, which has actually been laid as the major factor that has caused this situation, we're being told that we're going to be load shedded again. But on top of that, there were exports of electricity that were being
that were being done.
Yes, to other countries.
What has Tanzania done? Tanzania said, according to media reports, 3 of their generation power plants have been switched off because of excess power. Why can't you do the same things? You decided to export and said, no, these were commitments that we found. They were already there. Okay, since you found them, why didn't you cancel them? No, we can't cancel them. Let's continue with them. You continue with them. The money that you are getting from there, where is it going? Why can't you channel it into other sources of alternative energy? That's what we want to see. And now, Nelson, before we go to the next story, and now we are being, people are not being sincere. They are not following their own load shedding schedule. Or if it's 10 hours, tell us it's 10 hours. We're going to load shed you from, is it 6 hours? to 12 hours, then from 12 hours to 17 you're going to have power, then from there we're going, you become proactive, you become honest in your dealings. But what we are saying is that Vizimia is switched off. Viashe.
Okay, real quick, Joe, let's get to look at...
Let's go to this particular story. Transparency International Zambia Nelson has advised law enforcement agencies in the country to avoid demonstrating dedication to combating corruption only when there is a change in government. We do have a story. When we come back, we'll be joined by Mr. Samuel Banda. He is the ANDD Executive Director, and we are talking economic development. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
The fight against corruption has and still remains a source of concern among many citizens and stakeholders in the country. Since time immemorial, there has been a growing trend by law enforcement agencies in Zambia paying their allegiance to the government of the day, a practice which, in view of various interested stakeholders and institutions, among them the Transparency International Zambia, TIZ, has been detrimental in the fight against corruption. With quite several reports and cases taken to the law enforcement agencies, resulting in ineffective or no conviction at all judgments, concerns have arisen from many stakeholders and the public at large. Transparency International Zambia has expressed worry at the behavior by law enforcement agencies in Zambia only appearing committed in the fight against this vice when there is a change of government. TIZ Head of Programs Raymond Mutale has described the act as detrimental to the country's growth as resources are being lost at the expense of Zambians.
Why should the same institution behave differently depending on the regime that is ruling at that particular time? Systemically, it means that we have a problem. We have to deal with this issue, a legacy issue of loyalty, a legacy issue of patronage. Why should the law enforcement agencies appear to be active when there is change of government? I think we need to break that. We need to ensure that governance institutions, law enforcement institutions are consistent, regardless of which government comes into office.
Mr. Mtale has further called for the strengthening of law enforcement agencies in the country by decentralizing law enforcement institutions across the country to increase their capacity to combat corruption.
To strengthen the system. And by strengthening the systems, we are looking at institutional strengthening. What are the facets that make up these law enforcement agencies? How much investment are we making into all these facets? For example, do we have anti-corruption commission, drug enforcement commission in each and every district of this country? The answer is no. That gives you an idea of the incapacity of these law enforcement agencies to effectively fight, corruption, fight financial crimes. Government should consider decentralizing these institutions for us to effectively deal with these problems.
He has since expressed worry at the low conviction rate despite the many cases that have been reported to the law enforcement agencies, which has caused the public to lose confidence in them.
We are still grappling with the minimum numbers of actual convictions. So we receive, for example, I think that period, I stand to be corrected, ACC received way over 200 reports. Out of those, I think, if I'm not mistaken, between 15 and 20% of those cases graduated into cases that should be taken to court. Out of those that graduated to be taken to court, less than 10% were successful convictions in court. What does that tell you about how prepared we are to investigate these issues? Because it's only when we thoroughly investigate these issues that we are going to secure a positive conviction.
Chanda Mwango for Camnet News in Osaka.
Okay, thank you so much for still joining us on Camnet TV Breakfast, where we're urging you to rise and thrive with us this particular morning as you look forward to the week unfolding into a productive one. Monday sets the tone and we call it a second chance. Talking about a second chance, we have Mr. Banda here with us. He is the ANDD Executive Director who is here to discuss with us economic development as our topic of discussion this morning. Mr. Banda, good to see you and welcome.
Thank you very much, Joe. Good morning. I'm profoundly humbled and honored to be here.
Awesome. You look smart in blue. Are you also a Chelsea fan? Nelson, see how blue has come out.
Thank you very much. We didn't have to look good despite of the current economic challenges the country has continued to face due to some certain economic policies of the UPND government, our government.
But definitely, let's get maybe to start this conversation on that score. We know you've been advocating for development in the country, but over the recent weeks we've seen that fuel pump price has been hiked by about 4 ngwe. That is on petrol, and also on the same score we've seen that also there is an announcement that there's some hike on the electricity tariffs, especially when it comes to consuming this type of energy by ERB. What does this generally mean to you, and how are you interpreting these two announcements altogether?
Thank you very much, Mr. Banda, for that important question. I'll begin first by indicating that energy sector is a very, very critical sector to any development, to any economy of any country. That is why some developed and fast developing countries like America, China, Russia, Rwanda, Botswana, even South Africa and Singapore are subsidizing the energy sector, because they understand that the economic fundamentals, value chain, production, they heavily depend on the energy sector. Talk of transportation, it all depends on energy sector. For a farmer to move his produce, they have to use energy. For production of minerals, they have to use energy. For small scale enterprises, salon, barber shop, they have to use energy, which is electricity. Therefore, the recent, I'll say it, brutal upward trajectory of these essential commodities, fuel and electricity tariff, will significantly impact our domestic economic activities negatively. It will actually hinder the economic trajectory growth. Already we're experiencing load shedding. Ways off now, these essential commodities, fuel and electricity, they have been increased. Now what that means is that we will shrink our own domestic activities. When I talk about activities, I mean these are small business enterprises, the salon, the barber shops, the welders, the restaurant, the farmers, all the economic fundamentals will be negatively affected. Meaning also when these businesses close up due to the high cost of doing business, which will actually increase as a result of the upward adjustment of these essentials, fuel and electricity. What that means that the small businesses already which are limping will close up, meaning government will also lose revenue, people lose out also jobs. Already the scarcity of employment in Zambia. This upward adjustment, we must be honest with ourselves, is not good for our economy. It's detrimental to our economy. Government has to find a way to subsidize fuel and electricity if we are to grow our economy. Otherwise, without these economic reforms, introducing economic reforms such as introduction of subsidies, I tell you, our economy will continue shrinking. Even the projected 4.7% in terms of economic growth by this year, I don't think government will be able to achieve that. That pronouncement is actually won't be achieved.
But Mr. Banda, I think the argument there has been that we cannot begin to subsidize again on fuel as well as electricity because the power utility firm in this regard, ZESCO, owes about millions that have rendered it incapable in terms of providing these certain services to some sort of areas. So how doable is it that we go back to subsidies again despite this powerhouse that we rely on for a country to have electricity owing this much millions?
Very, very important question, Mr. Banda. The question we must ask ourselves, how were all these previous regimes subsidizing these important essentials, fuel and electricity? We have to look at where are the critical sectors where we can generate resources to subsidize.
So they need to be identified.
So yes, they need to identified.
Okay.
And if you remember, if you recall very well, if you may be aware that we, the advocates for national development and democracy, we have been advocating that let's invest more in the mining sector, because this is where where we can generate more resources and actually forex to stabilize the kwacha, which actually is a major influencing factor in terms of pricing fuel. Apparently, one of the factors which is causing the increase in fuel prices is the depreciation of the kwacha. So now, how do we stabilize the kwacha? We need to invest more in the mining sector so that we can be able to generate forex. We have strategic mines. For example, we have KCM, which is a major mining giant. This same KCM, under the KK government, is the one which was supporting education, which is the one which was supporting agriculture and other economic sectors. Why don't we invest more in revamp KCM? If we say we don't have the resources to revamp KCM, there is an investor, Vendata Resources, which has committed to invest into KCM. Let's partner with that investor. I understand that government is in transition process, but the problem is that this transition process has protracted for too long. The other strategic mine is Kasenseli Gold Mine, which apparently is not also operative. But this is a mineral where we can generate more resources in substance. It's unfortunate we are not even talking about these minerals. This government is not talking about these minerals. We have not seen that concerted efforts in terms of revamping the money. Oh, what we are in debt restructuring. For how long are we going to be talking about debt restructuring? Does it mean if you've got debt as a country, we should stop developing, we should stop investing in critical sectors like mining? We have Sujilite, remember, another critical mineral. In Luapula, or is it 2 years ago, a year ago, where there was a case of Sujilite, and we had millions of money which were being generated from Sujilite. Yes, so now, this is a critical mineral where, if we're a serious country, we have to invest into exploration. We set up industrial exploration.
But why are we not seeing this?
Why are we not seeing this?
You are the advocate, Mr. Banda.
We have been advocating, and let me utilize this opportunity once again to remind our government, the government of President Hakainde Hichilema, to consider focusing, revamping the mining sector, invest more in the mining sector where we can generate more resources, and begin to subsidize these now essentials, electricity and fuel.
Just there, Mr. Banda, you have been advocating for KCM and these other mining companies to reopen and begin to operate. So you have some knowledge regarding the mining sector, right? Let me ask you, is it true that where manganese is mined, that's why you find Sujilite?
Yes, absolutely true.
So those that are mining manganese right now, we can allege
there's a component of
Sujilite.
Yes.
Okay.
I tell you that we as a country will only develop this country by ourselves, not by any foreign entity, not by any foreign financial institution, the likes of IMF, no, not even a World Bank, but by ourselves. Now, how are we going to develop the country? My brother asked that where do we get the resources from our minerals? And see, mining sugilite or manganese, we don't need a lot of resources. All those guys which were rather mining sugilite were just using shovels.
Picks and shovels?
Shovels, yes,
okay.
Shovels and the picks. But look at the money which we had.
And
that was coming from these.
But politicians do tell us that we don't have the capacity to run our own mines, Mr. Banda.
I'll ask you a simple question, Comrade Joe. These small scale miners, how are they mining? Talk of Sparks. He's one of the richest young men in this country. He started with a small machinery. What is important is to start. Let us start. How I give a practical example that how were the guys mining sugilite in Ruapula? Well, they were not using heavy machinery. So our call, our call and our advice is that let's utilize the minerals that God has blessed us and generate resources and subsidize this fuel and electricity. This is a critical sector, and if energy becomes expensive, it's very difficult to develop the country because production heavily depends on the energy sector.
Now, Mr. Banda, you talked about revamping KCM and the data mineral resources being brought into the picture. Others have argued that there's no need for us to have the data back because they allege that this company is bankrupt.
You see, the problem we have in this country is that we tend to politicize.
Is it
development? We tend to politicize even straightforward issues. I'll tell you, and I've seen those assertions, and those assertions are being raised because the issue has protracted for too long. And apparently, due to ignorance, some people think that Vendetta is running KCM. Meanwhile, Vendetta is not yet running KCM.
What's happening?
The people are running KCM. It is government under the CMIH. So all the problems at KCM, it's because of, I would say, because of the current management of KCM, which is government, or let me say the CMIH. Now, people are saying, some few stakeholders are saying that the reason why KCM, why government has delayed to resuscitate KCM is because Vendetta is delaying to invest into KCM. That is actually high level of ignorance. And it's unfortunately that some stakeholders who are even raising those concerns have not been following reports from the Minister of Mines and equally from the Vendatta's Corporate Communication Director, Mr. Masuzion Job. These stakeholders have been indicating repeatedly, including us who've been following this issue as an interested partner in development. There's a transition process going on between Vendetta and the government. Now, that transition process started last year in September. And now, they have reached a stage where they submitted a scheme, create a scheme of arrangement. Without completing that create a scheme of arrangement, Vendetta can't take full control of KCM, and it can't begin to invest into KCM. Not until they complete the create a scheme of arrangement, which now is going to facilitate for Vendetta to fully take over KCM and begin to implement their investment commitment.
On that one,
let me just...
I want a layman to understand. What are the contents of the same?
So the create a scheme of arrangement, it is a plan or a document which outlines how Vendetta, the investor of KCM, plans to clear off payment to all the creditors that KCM is owing. Apparently KCM doesn't have the financial muscle to clear off all the payments to the creditors, the suppliers, and the contractors. The one who has the financial capacity is vendetta, but vendetta can't clear off without completing the scheme of arrangement in court.
Okay.
Yes, in court.
So
now there is the provisional liquidator of KCM submitted the scheme of arrangement, and on the 25th May and 30th May, creditors will have the meeting to discuss that on how the investor, or to agree on how they want to be paid in terms of clearing off payment to all the creditors. Our hope and our interest, just like other stakeholders, the suppliers, contractors, employees at KSM, and the general populace, is that we want to see after that completion of creditors create a scheme of arrangement, is that we want to see Vendetta to fully take over KCM so that they can be given an opportunity to resuscitate KCM, create the money-led employment and business opportunity for Zambians, and more importantly, so that we can begin to generate more forests as a country, to stabilize the Kwasha, which plays a very important role, or which is a major influencing factor in terms of pricing of fuel.
Now, Mr. Banda, I followed you keenly. You did mention that the only way we can develop as a country is if we, the citizens, take charge or take the lead in development.
Exactly.
Right? And here you are now indicating that ZCCMIH should actually give the full running of KCM to Vendetta. Isn't that not a contradiction to some extent? Because I'm meant to believe Vendetta is not Zambian, right?
You see, in any development, there's what we call strategic partnerships. Apparently, if you've been following the issue of Vendetta and KCM, this is the issue which has been in court. And legally, Vendetta Resources are the owners of KCM, as they hold 80% of shareholding in KCM. Now, what is important when you are entering into these strategic partnerships? What is important is that the interests, the aspirations of Zambians must be put first in these strategic partnerships. In our advocacy, we have consistently indicated that when government is entering into deals, whether with Mopani Mine investor, whether with Vendetta Resources regarding KCM, these investors, they must prioritize giving contracts, supplying contracts to our local suppliers and contractors. What happens is that when we empower our own business community, it means we'll be growing our own domestic economy by creating more employment for our people, and also by creating more business opportunities. As a result, that will also translate into government getting more revenues from the mining sector. Again, that is also a benefit that we can optimize from the mining sector, which government can actually use to subsidize these essentials, electricity and fuel. Trust me, no any developed country is completely selling off these essentials without subsidizing. But these are very expensive. So when you go by cost effective, these are the results.
But Mr. Banda, how is it going to play out? For instance, you're saying legally, 80% of KCM is owned by Vendetta, meaning that 20% is for the Zambians. If we go to Mopani, IRH owns about 51% in shares.
Yes.
And Zambians, through the ZCCMIH, they own about 49%. Now, when we look at all these numbers, definitely they indicate that Zambians don't have control. How do they get to hold?
They're the minority shareholders.
They are the minority shareholders.
In as much as they are minority shareholder, these are mines.
We call them shorts.
Wait, these are mines. Look at Botswana. I'll give you a practical example in Botswana. In Botswana, it's a mines. They hold about 40%. The investor holds 60%. But there are critical conditions which these mining firms have been given to say strictly these are contracts, supplying contracts, business opportunities and jobs must be given to the locals. That is very important. That is a deliberate policy. We can play around with policies. Now, remember the data resources through their CEO some few months back indicated that they're selling off about 20% shares. It is an opportunity for Zambia. It is an opportunity for ZCCMIH or Zambia through ZCCMIH or through their government to buy off 20%. Many will have 40% from KCM. We can start from there. It's a fact that KCM is a giant mine which needs huge financial resources to recapitalize. And also we need a high technical capacity. Remember, we're dealing with copper. When you talk about KCM, the major production there, commodity, is copper. It's different with Sujilite. With Sujilite, I will tell you that we Zambians, we can do it. Without engaging an investor, we can do it. We can do it.
And people are doing it in Wapura.
Yes, because it's easy to mine. But with the copper, there's the issue of dewatering. No, there are a lot of issues involved, and that is why we are saying with the KCM, with Mopan, let's partner with investors who have the huge financial capacity and technical capacity.
Our once colonizers always say numbers don't lie.
So numbers don't lie. It's a fact.
How are you going to convince Mr. Banda, this layman, to say, look, in KCM, we've got 20% as our share?
I've given you an opportunity. I've given you
maybe again to consolidate this, and if I'm getting what Mr. Banda is saying, Nelson, there's the issue of mineral tax. There's the issue of royalties that are being paid. We hear, though communication from government hasn't been there, especially the Ministry of Mines, when it comes to giving tax holidays to these mining companies. Why are we seeing that? If we can hold 41%, if we can hold 20%, but we tell them and we demand that they pay mineral royalties and we don't give them tax holidays, we'll be getting what we deserve as a country.
I totally agree with you, John. That is another way we can optimize benefits from the mining sector. Now, the other issue, we still go back to the critical issue, which is energy.
Okay.
That's a very important question. Yeah, my emphasis is so much on mining and energy because I know that energy sector, apparently everyone is crying. You know, and we must face these facts that the economy is going down. Let's not even pretend that things are okay. Things are not okay.
And Mr. Banda, there's a headline. There's a headline in line with what you're saying, not holding your thought. There's a headline in the News Diggers, Nelson, and it reads, ZESCO warns of more darkness. We may increase load shedding hours sooner than expected. My question is, you told us the president went to Tanzania to go and sign a power deal to begin to import power from that country. What happened? Why is this statement saying that we're going to have more load shedding? Mr. Banda, in line with what you're saying, you can marry the two.
So, you see, we still go back to energy sector. And it is important, just to add on what you said, Comrade Joe, it's important that we make our leaders accountable. We have to make them accountable over their promises based on development. Another question we must ask ourselves, why are we importing electricity? Are we not importing electricity so that we have enough electricity, so that we reduce the loading, shedding hours? We must ask our government. Zambians must begin to ask their government, because our government are accountable to us, accountable to the Zambian people.
Exactly.
The Zambian people put the UPND party in government so that they can reduce the cost of doing business, the cost of living, and grow our economy. But the policies being implemented right now, it's a sad sight. It's a sad.
Where are we missing it, Mr. Banda?
Development.
You are an advocate. You are in between. Where are we missing it?
Where are we missing? The UPND government are not implementing sound economic policies. they are not listening to what the people want. We have been advocating, just like you rightly observe, we've been advocating, and I responded to also to Mr. Banda that let's focus on the mining sector.
Okay.
Why? We must ask ourselves, and we must open our eyes, why are all these foreigners coming to our country and their interests are minerals? Why are we focused so much on talking about debt? Yes, it's good that we structure our debt, but also we must focus on implementing homegrown solutions. If we are to develop our country, I emphasized that this country will only be developed by Zambians. And our focus, our advice to the government is that let's focus on revamping strategic mines, KCM, Kaseseli, gold mine, where we can generate resources and forests to stabilize the kwacha, so that we can begin to subsidize these essentials, electricity and fuel. More importantly, like I indicated in my preamble, let's also identify other critical minerals like sugila. Let's find a way on how we can benefit from sugila, so that we can generate resources from this critical mineral. I'm happy to note that government this month hopefully will hand over KCM to Vendata resources. We'll be happy to see KCM begin to operate at optimum level. We'll be happy to see Vendata start implementing the investment commitments, among them the over $1.2 billion US for mine recapitalization and development.
Okay. Now, Mr. Banda, we're not digressing or anything, but I want to find out. I asked Nelson this question, which he threw to our viewers out there. I gave an example of a child. When a child is born, before even the child is born, there is prenatal. Before and afterwards, there is a mother going for antenatal visits and the like. Okay? Then, when the child obviously is born, they start monitoring that child's growth. Okay, the mother goes to a clinic, back and forth. They give this child is given an injection for tetanus. They are given an injection for measles. They are given an injection for that and that. Now, the child's growth is monitored until they fully fledged at the certain stage. Okay, even up to now, we are young adults. We are adults. Our parents do call us and check up on us. They are trying to check our growth.
Give you wisdom.
Of course, Mr. Banda. But the question is, who has been monitoring the growth of Zambia since independence? Who has been checking on Zambia to find out how is the mining sector doing? Are we generating enough revenue from the mining sector to channel into Control 99 so that we can have our monies as a country? Is ZRA doing its job to collect enough revenue from the mining sector? The answer is no, because recently they told us they have no capacity to collect revenue from the mining sector. So generally, start development. Generally, my question, Mr. Banda, to you as an advocate is, who has been or who is monitoring Zambia's growth 60 years down the line? Who is monitoring Zambia's growth?
Very, very important question, Joe. It still comes back to our position that Zambia will only be developed by Zambians. In terms of monitoring of our development, it still comes back to us. No one will develop this country. That is why these our leaders, electable leaders, they have been saying, when they are campaigning, they have been saying that you are voters, you are our masters. So it's us to monitor them, give them checks, balances through stakeholders, opposition political parties, civil society organizations, the church, and you, the media.
The fourth estate.
So when the government or the party in government are implementing policies contrary to what they promised the people, it's important that we remind them, here, this is not what you promised the Zambian people. You promised to reduce the cost of doing business so that a young entrepreneur has that capacity to grow the business and contribute to our social economic development. Here, you promise that you improve the living standards of the people by reducing the cost of basic commodities. But here we are, the prices of basic commodities are increasing, brutally increasing. Here you promise that the kwacha will be trading at 10 kwacha against the major convertible currency, which is the US dollar. But here we are, is trading at how much? 27
kwacha.
Yeah, and this is impacting our economy negatively. Is actually consequently leading to the increasing prices of basic commodities and also the cost of doing business. This is killing actually small business enterprises. But here we are. This is not what you promise the Zambian people. That is the most effective monitoring we can give to the current government. Our call to the UPND government is that they must provide a listening ear. They must listen to what the people want, and they must be open to criticism, because criticism is one of the feedback that the government can receive, and to ascertain where are we going on, are we doing right, or is it positive criticism, or there's genuine criticism, of course, you know, and it's through criticism that government can deliver good public service, or rather development. In an event that government is just open to praises, some people are just praising for the sake of praising. We have to look at the bigger picture. The bigger picture here is our country. If we love our country, meaning that we also need to make our government accountable so that they do a right thing. As NDD, we want the UPND government to deliver social economic development to the Zambian people. We want them to develop our country. We don't want them to fail. When they develop the country is for the benefit of everyone, John.
Okay.
The benefit of everyone.
Now, Mr. Banda, on that one, I know we're beginning to conclude, but let me ask you this question. The impact of all these changes and inconsistencies on the ordinary Zambian. Today, when I was coming, when I was being picked, I found a woman with tomatoes. I asked her, how much is a box of tomatoes? She told me it's now 450 kwacha. So how much are you selling one tomato? She said 5 kwacha one. Ututungono tu ngetoma 3 kwacha.
Yeah, even in our place there, you know, we are buying one tomato at 6 kwacha. Yeah, because we don't really have a market. We have shops, of course. Yeah. And they're saying at 6 kwacha.
6 kwacha.
One tomato.
So you see that I'm not speaking from without.
Yeah,
This is the reality, and this is what is on the ground, Mr. Banda. What's the impact?
And
I want you to
speak
to the impact.
Are struggling to afford.
Now, this is a barber man. This is a guy that works in a barber shop. He makes an average of 100 kwacha a day. He's load shedded the whole day, so he hasn't made any money. He gets his 20 kwacha that he has. Obviously, every day spends a 20 kwacha on his food. He wants to go and buy tomatoes, and he finds that one tomato is 5 kwacha. Mr. Banda, we know for a fact that there are families out there in Zambia who spend 27 kwacha a day, $1 a day. That's your meal for a day. We know it's a fact. Those things are happening.
Even 15 kwacha.
Even 15 kwacha. You know. So, Mr. Banda, speak as we begin to conclude. Speak to the impact at household level of these changes in the energy sector, in the mining sector, the economy of Zambia.
Policy, monetary rate.
Exactly.
Yeah, all those fundamentals. It's a sad development, Joe. Sad development. There is more hunger in the families. There is more hunger, The poverty has tremendously increased. One, not only because of high prices of basic commodities, tomato, onion, but the scarcity of employment. You talk of a Baba Madu, a very good practical example. You talk of Rama Saluni, my welders. If I take something to a welder to make something for me, then that welder is load shaded in the whole day. It means time has been taken away, many reduced productivity, reduce also profit. If that welder was attending to 5 customers in a week before being load shaded, now this time if he's attending to 2 customers, it means there's no business. Business has stopped making sense. There is reduced profitability and productivity.
Even those in butcheries.
Now what happens?
How about those in butcheries?
So it's difficult. That's why I'm saying we are creating our own domestic economy with these policies which the European government is implementing. So talk of butcheries, those who don't have the capacity to agure a genset, what happens to the products that they are selling?
But even a genset, Mr. Banda, petrol is now how much?
We also
35? It's expensive. So you are trying to
the energy sector. So these are critical sectors.
It's also expensive. What do you do? You go to Chaco,
it's also expensive.
And it's expensive.
So I think my advice is that we need to go for an economic endeavor.
Okay.
So that we
as
a country, we need a serious economic endeavor. Ask ourselves, let's not look at political affiliation.
How about the public forum that was poorly attended on Friday?
That is a public forum. We need an economic
endeavor. Where
we bring all stakeholders. The stakeholders from the government, stakeholders from the ruling party, stakeholders from the opposition, stakeholders from the church, from the civil society organizations, from the media houses.
Exactly.
Yes. Everyone, from the business community, let's have an economic endeavor and discuss what is the way forward. Where are we going wrong as a country? Let's stop looking at political affiliation.
Every time.
Let's look at the interests of our country. Let's look at the future of our children.
Okay.
I'm wondering.
I know you're going. I know from the look on Nelson's face, he's telling me we need to go. But finally, Mr. Banda, under a minute, let me find out from you. Last week Friday we had Honorable Uncle Bob. We had Uncle Bob. Uncle Bob is a former commerce minister. He's a former agriculture minister.
He's my former MP in Kafue.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He came with documents, government documents, and these government documents are there gathering dust in these government offices. And even if you don't have a plan as a politician, Mr. Banda, these documents will ably guide you, because all the plans to implement and develop this country are in those documents gathered, crafted by technocrats. Why are we not seeing politicians using these documents, which are in their offices right now? Remember, we had Engineer Johnston Chikwanda, who even said they came up with a research paper regarding the energy sector, how we can avert load shedding. It's there, gathering dust. Why are politicians like this? Why aren't they using these documents?
Why are they not implementing sound economic policies?
Yes.
Those questions will be answered during the economic endeavor. What I can say as ANDD is that maybe it's because of lack of political will, where we feel as a political party or the ruling party, we feel that our policies are the ones which are going to develop the country. Whatever sound economic policies were being crafted or implemented by
technocrats, by the way, by technocrats.
Of course, technocrats, they draft policies based on what the ruling party wants. Now, what is important as a country is that we must begin to progress as a country without looking at political interests. If the previous government was doing well in certain sector, the current government should continue in that path. That way we are going to develop. If the current government is doing well in certain sectors, the next government that is going to come, it must capitalize on on the policies crafted by the UPND government. That's the only way we are going to develop. But if you just trash away to say, if there's a PF, if there's MD, so we can't continue with this, then we are not going to develop as a country. I remember, and MMD was very good when it comes to FISIP. And when the PF came into power, they capitalized on that FISIP and also increased the quantity of commodities under FISIP. And PF forecast so much infrastructure development because the country that time was looking like a like a bush. I remember the artist from Nigeria, David, when he came in Zambia, when he reached Lusaka, I said, this is the capital city. So that was an embarrassment. So the PF did well in terms of infrastructure development. We saw the development of Manawasa, Levy Hospital. We saw good road networks, which are very important.
You are living at the airport.
You know, the airports, the so-called sausage airport.
I wanted you to say Mr. Banda, we need to go.
So all those dotted developments, the UPND should capitalize on the strength of PF development agendas and build up on that. And they must also focus now to develop our domestic economy. Once again, I want to emphasize, let's focus our efforts in revamping the mining sector. This is where we can generate more resources. But these are minerals. Drought. All what we need is just a strong political will and commitment to ensure that we optimize benefits from the mining sector. Already we have existing mines. We've got KCM, we have Mopam, we've got Kasensek. Let's ensure that these mines begin to operate at full capacity. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Banda, and thank you, the viewer, the major stakeholder. We need to go, Nelson.
And definitely we need to go. We say thank you so much to our viewers out there for setting the tone with us on this new week, and we can only wish them a happy new week, and be rest assured to catch you, Joe Tarelo Thimata, this afternoon as you delve into the lunchtime cafe. It has been Nelson Zulu, as well as our guest, Mr. Samuel Banda from the Advocacy for National Democracy and Development, ANDD, if you may like. It is bye for now, and a good morning to you. Okay.